reversing. He backed into the road, turning slowly. The house was quiet now. She had a few hours. Liesel had semi-retired from teaching and was working on a book, a sequel to her stories about growing up in Germany during the war. The trouble with her eyes gave all of this a greater sense of urgency. But even the capacity for urgency comes and goes as you get older. She spent most of her days at home, which made her a little stir-crazy, and she was often glad of excuses to get out of the house. Also, she worried about Dana. She was anxious about the visit and wanted to send the right signals from the start. And she wanted to see Cal again. She hadn't seen him since the summer when he spent a month with Paul in Wimberley, which was about 50 minutes from Austin, in the car, although she didn't feel comfortable driving there on her own anymore. Either Bill drove or Paul came to them. Her editor had made positive noises, but there was nothing under contract. And Liesel sometimes felt, as she chipped away at the computer one finger at a time, that she was indulging in something, playing around, keeping herself busy, all of which was fine by her. Sunshine streamed in, bright, wintry Texas sunshine. You could feel it translating into heat against your skin, but Liesel also sat with a blanket on her lap. Her study was formed out of an old sleeping porch and got very cold. The screens had been turned into windows. It was like sitting in a glass box. From her desk, she could see the side of the garden by the kitchen extension. They built it after Bill got tenure. When they first moved to Austin in the summer of 1975, she tried to grow vegetables there. The ground was so hard. She had to flood the earth, standing with the hose limp in her hand while mosquitoes chewed her before she could get a shovel in. But nothing would grow, not even grass. And now ivy covered the dirt by the concrete footpath. Steps led down from her study into the yard, but her desk stood in the way and she never used them. Liesel was happy enough just looking out. Along the bamboo hedge, past the pagoda, there were leftover sacks of fertilizer lying underneath it, and across the sharp-leaved St. Augustine's lawn to the shack where they kept their gardening tools. It stood in the shade of an old pecan tree which fruited every 2 years, and Bill had spent at least an hour yesterday combing the grass, trying to rake the nutshells out. She had watched him when she couldn't think of anything to write. He wore his Cornell sweatshirt and a pair of dirty cords, what used to be his teaching pants. The acidity ruined the soil, he said. But also, every time the kids came home, Bill wanted the backyard to look like it used to look when they were kids. The woman they bought the house from told Liesel that her mother's servant had lived in that little shack. Her mother was dead, that's why they were selling up. A few years after the Essingers moved in, a man rang the bell and introduced himself. Sam Mosby. For some reason, Liesel remembered his name. He said he used to visit his father in that house and wanted to look around again. At first, Liesel thought, when she saw him through the door window, a young black man in chinos and a collared shirt, he's trying to sell me something, or maybe he wants a job. But he explained himself very naturally. He said the old lady used to give him licorice or pecan brittle every time he came over. Before leaving, he offered Liesel his card. He had recently started a painting business in East Austin. His father's old cabin was really very small. You could hardly fit more than a single bed in there, one chest of drawers, and a hard chair. She wondered if, as a boy, he ever slept over. One of the first things the Essingers contracted for was to fix the roof. Liesel had an idea that the kids could use the cabin as a playhouse. A long limb of the pecan tree rested its weight on the shingles and had to be cut down. The foundation needed work, too, and the contractor found a nest of copperheads nearby, under the roots of a eucalyptus. Mr. Mosby must have lived with them for years. These are the stories she wanted to write about now. A young German woman, raised during the Second World War, making a life for herself in America, the land of plenty. Arriving first at Cornell on a Fulbright, where she met Bill and got married, to a Jew. Then trailing after him for several years on the academic roadshow, renting houses, looking for joint appointments, before moving to Texas with 3 small kids and finding the kind of thing you read about the South in books. A black servant who sleeps in the shed. The house itself was a 1920s plantation-style colonial, with white, clapboard walls, blue shuttered windows, pillars holding up